If you guys have watched any amount of my YouTube videos, you probably realize that I'm quite interested in sports psychology, the mindset of a powerlifter, and the role that plays in becoming a better lifter. And in this video, I wanted to talk about why the nonchalant lifter will typically peak better and perform better on meet day than the super serious, locked in powerlifter. Now, in order for me to explain myself and convey this message well, let's start off with the quote unquote off season, or the period of time where there's long gaps in between powerlifting meets. Typically, the goal in these periods is to get stronger. I mean, a lot would argue that the goal is always to get stronger, but in a peak, we're trying to display the strength we've built. Right? So when there's long periods in between meets, the goal is to force our body to adapt to new stimulus. And in order to do so, typically tonnage is sitting a little bit higher, volume is typically a little bit higher for a lot of these blocks. And when that's the case, I think we need to be really, really locked in to make the most of it, right? And what I mean by that is we're going to need to have a high amount of intensity, right? Like big volume sessions are hard to get through. And if you want to make the most of it, you need to push yourself hard, right? Push yourself past what you've done before. So it takes a lot of mental spend in order to do that. And then after our sessions, because we're pushing our body a little bit over capacity, we need to make sure that we're fueling the system well so that nutrition is on point and that we're sleeping well so we can go into our next sessions well recovered and make the most of those sessions. These long gaps in between meets are also the perfect time to play around with technique if needed, right? We have the time for it. So getting a little bit more neurotic about the technical aspect and fine-tuning things is not the worst thing in the world during these periods. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to be incredibly serious about training. Ultimately, this is the work that's going to get us stronger. But unfortunately, this is where most lifters let off the gas, right? This is where they're more nonchalant. And as the time frame shrinks down, when a meet starts to approach or the peak starts to approach, then they have this mindset of like, oh, now I need to lock in. My viewpoint is the complete opposite. Those long periods in between meets are where you need to be the most serious, most obsessive. You need to maybe sacrifice going out sometimes because we do need to put the body in position to recover and perform really well for the work that's ultimately going to get us stronger. Then when peak comes around, we're not getting much stronger, right? We're not really getting stronger during a peak. We are displaying the strength that we built through that quote unquote off season. So if you carry that same mindset going into the peak and you're a little bit too tight-fisted, you can rush things. You can get overly ambitious with the numbers you're hitting during the peak. You could be pushing yourself a little bit too hard, which ultimately is counterproductive to a really strong game day performance. And this is where I'd argue that, we've already built the strength because we were taking the off season really serious. This is the time to be a little bit more nonchalant. This is the time for a couple more distractions. And the reason that's beneficial is it takes away some of that mental strain. We already have a big competition. We already have big goals for that competition. And adding more stress into that process is not productive for performance. We're not trying to cortisol max during this phase. So I find that really funny because during a peaking process, especially this peak, I've been trying to fill up my days with honestly as many distractions as possible. And what I've primarily been focusing on right now is education. I'm just setting up calls with a lot of other coaches. I've been learning from coaches I look up to in the space and trying to keep my mind busy on things that are not strictly training related, and it's been massively productive for managing that mental fatigue. But I see so many people who are so lazy in the periods or the long periods in between meets, and then 8 weeks out or sometimes even 4 weeks out, they're like, oh, I really need to lock in now. And the stress of trying to make up all that ground in a 4-week period, it kills lifters, right? The time frame's short, and they feel like they need to make up so much ground that they're going to push too hard in training. They're going to stress so much during that whole process, and ultimately it's not going to lead to a productive game day performance. Anyways, what do you guys think about this topic? I'm not saying that my opinion here is right or wrong. I think everyone's different. This is personally just my thoughts on the situation. It was a little bit of a haphazardly conversation there. My thoughts weren't very well formulated, but I'm sure you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. And I'm curious what you guys think. Now, in terms of the training you're seeing on screen right now, this is some secondary work. And I haven't been posting these sessions on YouTube, but I was a little bit frustrated with my primary days 3 weeks out. So I had the top single on squat at 250, moved decent enough. I was okay with that one. But bench, I had 185 kilos. I rushed it. I cranked myself into a position that was too tight. My back cramped. Anyways, I was unsatisfied with that single. And then on deadlifts, I thought my 290 could have moved a little bit better. So I remembered that for my secondary sessions, and I made sure to clean up everything that I was upset with. I hit some ascending doubles on bench press. I went 175, 177, 180. Actually, sorry, they were singles. Fantastic. I was really, really happy with how all of them moved. I made sure to stay a little bit more present, keep my body a little bit more relaxed, and ultimately trust the position that I've been pressing in for forever, right? There's no reason to change position now. Then on deadlifts, I think I was able to manage my position a little bit better. I had a pause single at 280 kilos. It was fantastic. I kept my hips back a little bit longer, so my lockout was stronger, right? I just left the glutes for the end of the movement, and I felt a lot more confident throughout that pull. So my confidence was never shook, but I am happy to kind of get that redemption. And yeah, I think this was some really productive secondary work. I hope you guys are having some great training, and I'll see you next week for my primary sessions.